Welcome to the Close Encounter Club. I'm your host, Justin Gearhart. This episode we're speaking to Dr. Melvin Vopson. Dr. Vopson is the Associate Professor of Physics at the University of Portsmouth in the UK. He's most known for proposing the mass energy information equivalence principle, which is the idea that information has physical weight. And he's actually proposed some experiments that, if proven true, would completely reshape how we think about the universe. So when we first reached out to Dr. Vopson to be on the show, our main intention was to talk to him about his work in infodynamics and simulation theory. He said he didn't want to talk about it, but he did have a really crazy, unexplained story that he'd like to share on the show. An actual theoretical physicist has a ghost story? Sign us up. So the day comes and Dr. Vopson joins the call, and before we even start recording, he doubles down and says, "Why on earth do you guys want to talk to me about my infodynamics stuff?" And my response to that was, we're not just a ghost show. We actually want to get down to the truth of what's going on, and we listen and we actually contest with real tools, and we present to you, the listener, if what is claimed actually holds up or not. Once I explained that, Dr. Vopson opened up and said that the University of Portsmouth has been cracking down a little bit on their professors and doesn't necessarily want them talking about their research on podcasts. And I get that. So before we go any further, I just want to make sure that everyone's clear that the opinions expressed on this episode is exclusively Dr. Vopson's alone and does not represent the University of Portsmouth in any way. You can tell probably from my description that tensions were a little high when we first started recording. Dr. Vopson actually goes into a presentation about his experience, which was very interesting. We actually got him to open up about his theories. So the second half is much more science-based and we talk about his research quite a bit. So strap in. This is going to be a fun ride. This is episode 21 with our conversation with theoretical physicist Dr. Melvin Vopson. And welcome to the Close Encounter Club.
My name is Dr. Melvin Vopson. I am a full-time physics academic, and in my spare time, I'm also a part-time tennis coach. In fact, I'm licensed and qualified LTA performance coach. I passed my exams and qualifications, and this goes back to my junior years when I was a pro junior tennis player, and that was my first love in life. At the moment, I'm just coaching my two boys. One is 13, one is 15. The 15-year-old one is a national pathway player, is consistently in top 10, top 15 in the UK, plays international tournaments. In fact, next weekend we go to an ITF. Just came back from France from an ITF and so on. So in 2021, you guess we travel a lot on tour. We go at tennis tournaments frequently in the UK, and in the past 2 years we started doing international tournaments. So in 2021 we traveled, August 2021, we traveled to a tournament, a place called White Horse Tennis and Leisure Centre in Oxfordshire. This is Abingdon, is the town. And it was a big regional tennis tournament. Edwin played 11 and under. And I will never forget this event because he actually won the tournament, but he won in the final without losing a single game. So it was 6-love, 6-love.
It's at this point in the conversation that Dr. Vopson said he had a few slides to show us. It kind of took Josh and I by surprise a little bit. We've never had a guest do that. As the host, I wasn't quite sure how I was going to present that to all of you, but I decided just to go with it and kind of see where it landed. After all, Dr. Vopson was already a little bit on edge after he questioned why we invited him onto the show. He also didn't want to partake in discussion surrounding his theories in fear of retribution from the university that he works for. So I just kind of put the blinders on and just wanted to see where this whole thing was going to end. You're about to see this presentation that Dr. Vopson gave to us.
This is actually a print screen of the scoring format. You can see Edwin James Vopson winning the final, 6-love, 6-love. It was quite something. And He's holding there in the picture on the right top corner an envelope. He was only 11, but this is the first time he made some money, actually. The prize was a cash prize and a trophy. So this is the place we travel to. So when we go to tennis tournaments, if you are in this business, you would know that it's highly unpredictable. The performance is very unpredictable. You never know whether a player is going to lose first round or go to the final. So what we tend to do, we book hotel for one night, maybe, or 2 nights. And then if it goes south, we just, check out and go back home. Or if it does well in the tournament, we continue the stay by extending the room or finding another hotel and booking extra nights to continue our stay. And this is what happened at this tournament. Edwin did exceptionally well. So tournament took place between 1st and 7th of August 2021. And because he did so well, I had to book another night, another hotel room. We stayed on the 4th of August 2021. I tend to go and use booking.com or various booking sites to get the best value for money, the best room rate. So that was the closest to our tournament venue, and it was a good value for money. They had rooms. So we went to this place called Cheney Manor. It's in Oxfordshire. It's not far from Abingdon. This is a 13th century manor house. It has a long history. It was an abbey. It has different usages over centuries. You guess it's a grade 1 listed building. And as is the planning law in the UK with the listed buildings, especially grade 1, you can't really change anything to it. It still has single glazing and original glass and frames. And so we stayed there on the 3rd and 4th. We stayed there for 2 nights. And so this is, I have some pictures, some examples where you can see the medieval style, the arched windows and the style of the interior, and everything looking very old and traditional and all that. So this is our room, and it was as I said, very basic. In fact, there were some spiders in the bathroom, and not even a television in the room, because I think they had restrictions in terms of like what they can install, being such an old grade 1 listed building. So in the evening, when we stayed there, Edwin was sitting on his bed watching YouTube, I believe, on the phone. And I was, you see the picture on the right, there is a fireplace. It's just a decorative fireplace. It's not functional. It's blocked up. It's just a decoration there. There is no, I specifically looked, there is no airflow or any chimney that comes through. It's all enclosed and sealed. So that fireplace, to the right of the fireplace, where you see the dustbin and the hairdryer, there was a desk. And I was sitting at the desk doing some work, checking my emails and all that. It was in the evening. We finished the matches, we had dinner, and next to the fireplace there was a big tennis bag with all the tennis rackets, tennis balls, everything we had in it. And on it there was an empty plastic carrier bag, like supermarket type of plastic bag. On that plastic bag there was my cap, my hat, a tennis hat. And as I was sitting at my desk, Edwin was with the headphones, so listening music on YouTube or something. And as I was sitting at my desk, the tennis bag and the plastic bag and the cup, they started to move, but move quite brutally. It was physical movement, visible physical movement, and I could hear the plastic bag making the specific noise when you squash it and when you it felt like somebody was looking for something in the bag with a hand, it was an empty bag, looking for something. And my scientific mind, being a physicist, and my analytical mind immediately started to analyze. So the first reaction was, gosh, this place is so old. We've seen some spiders in the bathroom. I think we have some kind of rat that made its way through the chimney, where he was in the room already, and is now troubling us inside this plastic bag, and where the tennis bag was, and my hat and everything. And I got really scared. I was like, what the hell we do is, what is that? We have a rat in the room. So I knocked the bed to draw the attention of my son. And I said, have you seen that? He was busy with the music, and he didn't notice, he didn't hear. But I said, have you seen that? I said, no, I haven't. I said, I think we have a rat there. I'm going to go quietly and see whether he's still there. Obviously, there was nothing there. I went there. There was, the bag was empty. The hat was, it dropped on the floor. There was so much movement that everything dropped. And there was nothing there. And I said, wow, that is weird. And I started to, again, the analytical mind looking for scientific explanations. So I managed to rule out any possible draft. There were no windows open, no doors opened. The chimney, this is why I had to look. It was completely blocked. So there was no airflow. There were no small animals, large animals, or nothing in the room. There was no earthquake. We had a lamp, a hanging lamp, and if there is an earthquake, you typically see anything that is like a pendulum type of physical system, like a lamp or something. It will swing gently if there is an earthquake. So there was nothing like this. So that it was completely unexplained. I couldn't tell scientifically why I've seen and I heard what I did. I couldn't explain it. So we went to bed. I was a bit sort of like not worried, but I was still thinking about this. So we went to bed, and it was August, but it gets quite cold during the evenings in the UK, even in August, because the windows were single glazed. As you can see in the picture, very old windows and single glazed, all frames, everything, they get steamed up. So the windows would be very steamed up from the inside, because it's warmer than outside and you get steamed up. When we pulled the curtains, I found on the window marks of a child's hands, fingers, like dragged on the window like this, like they were the prints of a child's hand on the steamy side of the window. Obviously, it wasn't us doing that, but here I could find an explanation, a scientific explanation. It could be some greasy hand, a child in the past, a previous guest, who would have touched the window, and the greasy hands, that previous leave an imprint on the window that would become visible later on. I think that could be explained. Anyway, the next day we took some pictures in the Manor's surroundings, the gardens, the beautiful buildings, the park, everything. So you see my son on the left, you see me over there in the background with the black shirt. And then when we reviewed the pictures, we had maybe 15, 20 pictures, something like that. When we reviewed the pictures, we noticed, in fact, my son noticed this. They were taken with my phone. He noticed this orb, this white light in one of the photos, which was not visible at the time when we took the picture. We didn't notice anything like this. So, again, as a physicist, I would start looking at scientific explanations, but it's very hard to find one here. First of all, as you can see, the sun is on the other side of this pine tree, or whatever is this evergreen plant, a massive tree. So there is a shadow forming on our side of the image. And this orb, this white light, this pure white light, you can zoom in very nicely on it, is actually in that shadowy part of the tree. I looked around. There was nothing possible to reflect light, or to. There was no there were no objects, no posts, no light posts, no shiny objects, no nothing in the surroundings. It was just in the park, actually. There was nothing that would explain that, unless you would assume some kind of camera glitch or some kind of optical artifact in the camera. But I had this phone for almost 10 years, I think, and I never had anything like this. It's flawlessly working. The camera never created any artifacts like this, optical errors, or any, whatever you want to call them. I've never had anything like this. And in fact, I've been looking for somebody to actually look at this image and analyze it in scientifically, doing spectrum analysis, doing Fourier transform, doing image analysis, doing anything they want. It's still, the original image is still on my phone. I keep deleting pictures to save space. It's an old phone, but this is the oldest image I have on my phone. Is still the original image is on the phone. Of course, I downloaded everything, and this is one of the downloads. But this Sharp Aquos 53, whatever it's called, is still the phone. In fact, this is the phone I'm still using now. It's the same phone, and the image is there. So I sat on this since 2021, and I've been quite keen to find somebody that does investigative work in this kind of phenomena. And I'm happy to share this picture, and if they want to do any analysis, I don't know, maybe I'm not an expert in this, but maybe there are some scientific ways of looking at this picture, decomposing, the pixels and stuff. I don't know what you could do with that to see what is that orb, and or maybe is more to it, if you look carefully, if you remove some layers, digital layers of the picture, or do some analysis of the picture, or some deep, I don't know, spectral. Yeah, so that's what I was hoping to share, and make an appeal that this is open for any. I can share it free of charge. And happy to give any details and anything. And if anybody wants to investigate this, I'm happy to share the original from the phone, or even hand over the phone to inspect it and look at the originality of this. But that's what happened. And based on this image, and based on the experience we had the previous night, I could only conclude that what we are seeing there is a pure type of, it's a pure soul. It's an orb of light, and I've seen this in all sorts of programs about paranormal and unexplained phenomena and things like that. Orbs exactly like this in cemeteries and haunted houses and all sorts of things. So we haven't seen it. It just came in the photo. Would it be a kind of infrared? It wasn't in the visible spectrum. We haven't seen it. So the camera surely captured this. And I know from our physics labs at the university, we have experiments where they need to look at some infrared light. And obviously the LEDs, you will not be able to see that light. So we advise the students to use the phone to capture when the LED lights up. It's the Planck constant measurement experiment. They need to capture exactly the moment when the LED lights up. You don't see it. It's not in the visible. Those LEDs are in infrared spectral region. So anything infrared or UV or even higher, they will be not visible to human eye. You'll be X-rays, gamma rays, and these are not visible. Okay, UV, it's one part of UV is not visible, and infrared is not visible either. So the nature of this orb will be one of those energies, okay? It will be outside the visible spectrum because we haven't seen it. It just came in the photo. So, but whatever it is, I made a connection with the experience we had the previous night, and I ruled out any physical, logical explanation of what happened there. That kinetic movement that I experienced, and initially I thought it was a large rat or something. It had no explanation. There was something there moving our items, our possessions in the room. For the fingers on the window, I have an explanation. I think we shouldn't look too much into that. Okay, it could be explained, but this orb of light, given that we are looking at a 13th century manor where executions took place and all sorts of a long history, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there is some remnant energy left around there, some poor souls or some consciousness still residing around there. Something is there, and that is it. That's how it looks. That's pure energy. It's light coming from nowhere. It's just pure energy. It has no structure. It has no source. Just pure light, pure energy. So that's what I wanted to tell you guys. That's my story, and I do have other experiences that I had in my life, quite similar, but this is the only one where I have a picture of it. We captured this picture, which I wasn't even aware of it until we reviewed the photos. Anything else, I'm not talking about anything else that I experienced in different occasions. I had other experiences in my life, very interesting experiences, but I keep them away because it's just my word. It's not. I don't have any physical evidence or anything that I can support the story, But in this case, I thought, why not? I'm just gonna share this. It does no harm, and if somebody wants to investigate that image, I'm happy to share it, the original.
If only we had some sort of tool to give this image to that could maybe help do some sort of forensic image analysis of it,
Justin, I can hear you, right?
I know, Scully. I was just joking around. I was actually just curious what you would say, to be honest. But anyway, let's get into this. So I've given you the full image, the full raw data that Dr. Vopson gave us. What are your first impressions?
First impressions, I ran the works, looked at the RGB histograms, checked the luminance spectrum, and measured that orb's little glow. And what I'm seeing is a fully clipped, super bright, perfectly neutral highlight right in the shadow. In other words, it's the camera playing ping pong with sunlight inside the lens, rather than a mysterious visitor. So my first impression, it's a textbook lens ghost, and it's a pretty good example of how optics can have a sense of humor.
Yeah, I mean, can you tell me, I have the histogram here, I have some of the other tools that you ran. Can you walk us through what they mean and how you determine that it's just a ghost in the lens?
Absolutely. Let's break it down. So looking at the histogram you've got there, you'll notice a big spike at the very top end. It's right around the 255 mark for red, green, and blue. That's basically telling us that the orb is a fully saturated, pure white highlight. In other words, the camera sensor isn't seeing any color in that spot, just a bright neutral flare. Then there's the FFT, or the frequency analysis we ran on the luminance. That just shows us there's no weird pattern or hidden artifact, so nothing suspicious, just normal light behavior. When we put it all together, a bright neutral highlight in the shadow, no color cast and no pattern, it all lines up perfectly with a lens flare. Basically, the camera caught a little internal reflection from the sun or a bright light source just out of frame. So that's how we know. We check the brightness, the color, and the patterns, and they all say, yep, that's just optics having a bit of fun. It's the camera's little trick, not a mysterious entity.
Okay. So you're saying that there's absolutely no chance that this could be just a ball of energy or a spirit or anything like that. This is fully explainable.
Exactly. In this case, all the evidence points to a perfectly natural explanation. When we see a bright, fully neutral highlight like this, especially one that's consistent with how light bounces around inside a lens, it's a classic lens flare scenario. In other words, this is fully explainable by the physics of photography and optics. So while it's fun to imagine a ball of energy or a spirit, the data we have really does point to a more down-to-earth cause. It's just the camera's way of catching a bit of stray light and turning it into something that looks mysterious. So yes, in this case, it's fully explainable.
Okay. That's fair. A little disappointing, but fair. I guess before I let you go, what are your thoughts on the bag that was rustling around that Dr. Vopson thought was a rat? What are your thoughts on that experience?
Hey, I get it. Sometimes we all secretly want a good mystery. Honestly, a lot of times things that seem eerie have very ordinary causes. Maybe there was a breeze, maybe a critter, or maybe just something shifting around naturally. In other words, I'd give it the same treatment. We look for the simplest, most logical explanation first. It's a little less spooky, sure, but it's also a good reminder that not everything that goes bump in the night is paranormal.
I'm going to push back a little bit on the bag scenario, though, because Dr. Vopson is a physicist, and I think he would have thought of wind and other natural explanations. I mean, he admittedly said that the handprint on the window, he can explain that. So the bag, I feel like, is a really weird element of this. Even if you take the handprint on the window and the lens flare out of it, it still is a really weird situation.
Absolutely, and it's fair to push back. I mean, when you've got a physicist on the scene who's already ruled out the obvious stuff, it does add a layer of intrigue. Sometimes things do happen that leave us scratching our heads a bit longer, and that's totally okay. So yeah, maybe that bag rustling is one of those little mysteries that keeps things interesting. It doesn't have to be paranormal, but it can definitely be something that makes us think a little harder. And who knows, maybe it's one of those quirks of the environment that just hasn't shown its hand yet.
So for those of you that may not be on Team Scully or Team AI, I get it. There's still some concerns about its validity, and we can't take what it says for truth. But I did speak with Josh, who has a friend that's a forensic photographer. Basically, they ran it through a bunch of programs just like Scully did. And from their investigation, it looks like it's burned into the frame and that it is a genuine light source within the image. They don't believe that it's a lens flare. Best explanation that they could give is that there was maybe a reflective ornament that was in the tree that was reflecting the sun perfectly in that moment. So again, it's hard to say, but I just wanted to throw that information in there, that there was a second reliable source that we talked to. So with all this information about the lens flare or the orb that's in the image, I wanted to ask Dr. Vopson to clarify a little bit more about the bag incident. I have one question about your story, if you're willing to answer it, just a clarification. So the tennis bag and the plastic bag and your hat that were next to that fireplace.
Next to the fireplace, you can see in the background in that picture that there was a cool box, a blue cool box, and some other things. But when this happened, it was the tennis bag right in front of the fireplace with these objects on top of it.
And was the whole tennis bag moving, or was it the plastic bag? It was a large...
No, it was a large 5 rackets tennis bag, very large tennis bag. On top of it, a plastic bag, and then a cup on top of that.
Okay.
The bag was empty. The plastic bag was empty, and it started moving. As you would look, you lost a pound coin or your keys or something, and you put your hand in the bag and start looking. That was the movement. Initially, I thought, "Wow, it's a rat in there."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I said, "This is scary because this room is so dodgy." We've got spiders there were mosquitoes, there were spiders, and now we have rats. No way. I'm gonna sleep in the car. I told Edwin, if there is a rat here, I'll sleep in the car. There was nothing there. There was absolutely nothing there. It was just movement with no source, no logical explanation.
Did that experience leave an emotional and also like intellectual impact on you at all, or not really?
No. And I told you I had other experiences, and I felt that cold air, that the temperature changes in the room in a fraction of a second. It comes and you feel like freezing out of the blue, and then something happens. And I had this. Okay, I have no evidence to show you guys, but I had experiences like this. This time, nothing. There was nothing. There was no emotional change. There was no temperature change. There was just that noise and kinetic movement and objects moving and all that. There was nothing like a poltergeist type of thing.
No, I meant more like existential for yourself, like being a physicist. After this happened, were you thinking about it constantly? Was it something like, what would that be? Did it have any like paradigm shift for you, like afterwards, that you were thinking about it?
No, because it wasn't the first time. I mean, I had my wake up moment at the age of 12. You were a bit older when you experienced something that changed your life, maybe. But I was 12 when I experienced something that could not be explained logically or scientifically. I can tell you what that was. I had a vision. I had a vision that happened within half an hour, exactly what I've seen. I've seen the future. I was in a relaxed state, in a swing at the countryside. It was a family party, and I was playing in my swing. And out of the blue, I saw my grandfather in a puddle of blood, on the ground. Just 12-year-old, where that image would come from, what would be the reason for that, what was the source of that information, no idea. I paid no attention to that. 12-year-old, I was just playing, just in a swing. Half an hour later, it drops on the staircase. Boom. Exactly how I seen it, exactly how I pictured it in my mind earlier. It was exactly like that. I was looking at him in exactly the same way. This is when I realized there is more to this world than science is not covering everything. There is more to it than just science. All right. So,
can I ask, would you be comfortable maybe walking us through the experiences you had after that? You mentioned you've had a few. What?
Yeah, I'm not talking about the others. No.
That's okay.
If you don't mind, yeah.
No, of course.
Yeah.
While I'm not a physicist, I'm not a scientist in any way. That is the reason I started this podcast, is to try to figure out what's going on. And I agree with what you just said, that science just seems to kind of it's like an outcast thing where they
This is not just incapable of explaining many things, but it's incapable of accommodating new ideas.
Yeah.
Or welcoming new paradigms, new ways of thinking, or integrating into the scientific method things that maybe are not considered scientific, or new methods, let's call it like this, or they are very, very robust, very rigid at evolving and opening up to new ideas and this is actually in relation to science itself. Everything that is new initially in science it gets rejected. When Planck postulated the Planck energy, the Planck quanta, and suggested that energy is quantized, and the idea was so revolutionary. For 2 years he didn't even appear in a conference. He didn't publish anything. He just took a step back, and he was so radical. And so and this is what happened. Special relativity, quantum mechanics, when you come and say time is relative and space is relative and distances can change, some of the outcomes of special relativity, for example, and NGR, they were so wacky that the initial reaction is to reject them. It can't be right. There is something wrong there, and the same is quantum mechanics and other strong things in physics that initially were not welcomed. They were quite rejected, and to some extent is the stuff I'm doing now. The information physics and some of the things I'm doing now, they are not. The uptake is quite okay, in scientific community, but it's not as strong as it should be. It's still a reluctance there, and you need to understand people are. If you have a professor that 25 years did research in a given field of science, and then somebody comes and contradicts that, or maybe brings a different explanation to that angle, they will be very reluctant of accepting this, because you will neutralize their research, or you get the picture. It's not an easy thing to. You have the gatekeepers, sort of like they will always push back, but eventually things come through, especially the truth. It comes through usually.
We see that a lot with Graham Hancock's work. Are you familiar with his work at all, with the pyramids in Giza and just like ancient?
Is that the new stuff they found underneath? Is that the new stuff they found with the ultrasound scanners?
It's part
Those
of
are
it.
the Italians, I think.
It's part of it. I mean, Graham basically is saying that he's an archaeologist, and he's basically saying that there's an ancient civilization that was before ours that lived, and they were technically advanced as well, and there's evidence to show that. Like there's like Göbekli Tepe, which is this archaeological site. There's even watermarks on the pyramids of Giza that indicate that those pyramids were there pre the Great Flood, after the Younger Dryas.
And despite all this evidence, the historical scholars, the archaeologists, all the academics and stuff, they reject all these ideas.
Yes.
Despite the huge evidence that is there, they just stick to their own sort of like story and science. And it makes you wonder why, why would you not be open to the truth, and to finding what is happening yet. So this is the problem in physics as well. This is the problem in every scientific field. And science can become very politicized and very corrupt.
Yep. Yeah, I felt that same way about Graham Hancock when I was listening to a podcast that featured you. I'll put somewhere up here whatever podcast it was. I forget the name of it right now, but I was listening to the infodynamics, the second rule of infodynamics, and we don't have to get into it if you don't want to, but I felt the same way just listening to it as a computer science, I'll use the phrase expert. I've been doing it for 15 years. A lot of the stuff that you were saying was resonating very deeply with me, and I just thought to myself, this seems like at least a path that we should be exploring a lot more and trying to come up with experiments and ways to try to prove or disprove this theory, but it makes a lot of sense. So why are people, do you feel like you're getting a lot of pushback with your theory?
To be honest, I don't mind, and I don't care much, to be honest. I'm not too bothered. I feel that there is, judging by the number of downloads, the number of citations, the impact, the uptake is, all these articles and stuff is not too bad, actually. I can't complain, but but I still haven't managed to secure the funding to try some of the experiments. There are some groups that expressed interest in working, but then one of the guys backed off, and I didn't get an explanation why. Some people expressed interest in funding some of these experiments, but it hasn't materialized. Research grants is a no-go because I had some bad experiences with the research grants agencies. I mean, when you go to apply for a grant and you say, I have a model that can predict genetic mutations before they take place. If this is really correct, I want to create a deterministic protocol that will predict genetic mutations before they take place. You will revolutionize virology, genetic therapies, cancer research, everything. Evolutionary theory, everything. And the grant doesn't even enter the peer review process. It gets rejected by a clerk.
That's ridiculous.
But yeah, it doesn't even go to somebody to read it, So I gave up on applying for research grants because it's a very distorted process, very imperfect.
Do you have ideas of what experiments you would want to conduct if you had the funding?
Oh, yeah. Yes, I published, the paper had 250,000 readers. I've never seen anything like this in my entire life. I mean, the University of Portsmouth, the average readership per article among all academics, the average is, I think, is 28 per year. That paper alone had 250,000
incredible
downloads. Yeah,
that's incredible.
Exactly, and
that shows a lot of interest.
I did even crowdfunding campaign to actually get the money to do the experiment, and I managed to get 2% or something of the target, or something like £4,000 or something. I needed £250,000.
What would be one of the experiments? Would you feel comfortable sharing that, or don't you want to?
Oh yeah, it's published. It's in the public domain. This is open access. It's published. The experiment is it hinges on two assumptions. They both have to be true for the experiment to yield a positive result. So if one of them is not true, or incorrect, it doesn't mean the theory is wrong. It means the way that the experiment has been imagined, it will not work. It hinges on two conjectures. One of them is that inorganic matter and essentially elementary particles, they hold information about themselves in themselves on a similar model to biological life. Like any cell of your body or any little part of your body, any drop of blood will contain all the DNA and all the information about you. It'll be enough to duplicate you, essentially. So all that information is in the cells, in the matter itself, in the biological matter. So the question I had is, what is the information about an electron, like an electron or a neutron or any elementary particle, let's say, would have specific characteristics like charge, mass, spin, and so on. So where is this information stamped? How does an electron know that is an electron, and why an electron here behaves like an electron in a different galaxy or at the edge of the universe? How are they? They're all behaving the same, and are they? It's like you go to a supermarket and you buy a shirt and it has a barcode with a label on it, and it says 100% cotton, $19, made in China. All that information is stamped somewhere and is labeled, okay, on the item, and the biological matter has all this information in itself, in the DNA. So the conjecture was that what if these particles also contain the information about themselves in themselves, so they are stamped with all these characteristics, and they have to hold that information. And I calculated actually how many bits of information you would need in the most optimal way to store in every elementary particle in the universe, to stamp them to contain this information, sort of thing. It came to around 1.5 and a few other digits, around 1.5 bits per particle. And that's including quarks. So, and then that's the first conjecture. The second conjecture is that the information is physical. The information is not just an abstract. A bit of information has a physical manifestation. It's a form of energy, or it can even acquire mass. It goes back to the mass energy information equivalence principle published in 2019 by me. So if information has mass and if particles contain information, then the question was, how can we measure that? That was the key idea. How can we test that? And the calculation shows that this is very small. This mass is extremely small. It's actually within the error limits of the measurement of the mass of the particle. The uncertainty in the measurement, that mass, that information would hold, it's within the uncertainty of the measurement of the mass of the particle itself. So it's too small to measure it, to determine it. But then, so what is my paper? What is my idea? My idea was to, if we can't measure the mass, maybe we can measure the energy dissipated when you erase that information. Okay, just like you erase some data on a hard disk drive, there should be some dissipation of energy coming from those bits that you erase. The same would be from the particles. How do you erase that information? And the question is, how do you erase information in a particle of matter? How do you delete that information? And one mechanism is to annihilate a particle with an antiparticle, with its own antiparticle. And this is a process that we do it quite routinely, actually. We have positrons and electrons. So the positron is the antiparticle of the electron. The process of annihilating an electron and a positron produces 2 gamma photons. By converting the entire energy stored in their masses into 2 gamma photons. This is the process. We do this quite routinely. This positron, there are positron therapies for cancer treatment, positron spectroscopy, looking at, for example, impurities in semiconductors, using a beam of positrons and doing spectroscopy of this gamma. By detecting these gammas, it's an indication of how much annihilation took place in the semiconductor when bombarded with positrons because of the negative impurities, the negative charges in the semiconductor. It's a long story, but these are routine things. This is not science fiction. We do annihilation of positrons, electrons on a workbench experiment. So if my theory is correct, then in addition to these gamma photons, which are 511 kiloelectron volts each, two of them, coming from annihilation of positrons and electrons, you should also get something else that is associated with the deletion of information inside the particles. And that's something else.
What is that?
Those are photons of extremely low energy. They are in the infrared spectral region, around 50 micron wavelength. So the reason they haven't been detected yet is because when you do these kind of experiments, you have detectors that are designed to pick up gamma energies, kiloelectron volts, and these are milli-electron volts or microelectron volts. They are extremely low energies. The wavelength is infrared. The other one is gamma rays. So the experiment is essentially to do this positron-electron annihilation spectroscopy with the addition of infrared detectors to hopefully pick up the infrared information photons emitted at the synchronized time and at the same time with the gamma photons. So the signature would be a synchronized detection of infrared photons of a specific energy. I gave the value of that energy, but it might be plus minus. It might not be entirely correct, the calculation, but there should be some infrared photons that come off at exactly the same time and not later, not sooner, exactly like femtosecond, picosecond, sort of like time delay, exactly at the same time with the gammas. So if that is detected, then that's the first signature of this process, and the first signature that everything is informational. Everything is there is an information substrate to everything, including matter and particles, and all that is quite powerful. There is another.
I'm so glad that
there is another signature, if I may say. These infrared photons, they scale with the temperature.
Okay.
So if you change the temperature of the experiment, and this is done quite simply by cooling or heating the lump of metal that contains the electrons before it's bombarded by positrons. So you change the temperature of that experiment, okay? You should see a shift in these, assuming you detect the infrareds, okay? The first tick is you detect them at the same time with the gammas. That's the first signature. The second signature, and that is categorical proof, then you start changing the temperature of your experiment, and they should shift the energy with the temperature. You cool it down, they lower the energy. You increase the temperature, they increase in energy accordingly. And there is a formula that I gave for this energy shift. If you do this, you get Nobel Prize.
I'm so glad that I created this AI called Scully, because what you said, it sounds incredible. I'm just not smart enough to fully understand it, but it'll help me explain to me like I'm 8 years old or something like that, which is good.
You could just use ChatGPT for this, Justin. So here's the deal. What Dr. Vopson is basically saying is that information isn't just an abstract concept, it's something that actually has a physical presence in the universe. When you delete or erase information, even at a particle level, there's a tiny bit of energy release, like a little heat or a small infrared flash. So he's proposing an experiment to prove that when particles annihilate and their information is erased, you should see this extra little burst of energy. In other words, information has a tiny physical cost, and he wants to show that with real data.
So basically, like the first law of thermodynamics, where, energy is just transformed from this into that. He's saying that information is the same way, where when you delete information from, let's say, your computer, it actually releases some sort of energy. Is that correct?
Exactly, you've got it. It's like applying that same idea of conservation of energy to information itself. When you erase information, there's a tiny release of energy, just like transforming one form of energy into another. So yeah, you nailed it. That's exactly what he's getting at.
Yeah, you need to be careful with this with these AIs. I'm being honest. I had some funny experiences with the AIs.
I was going to ask you what you thought of AI and if you thought it was going to help.
Make no mistake, you will create another kind of human soon. We are going to have biological humans, and then we are going to have augmented humans within a decade, probably. Augmented humans would be people that would use Neuralink from Elon Musk and this kind of technology to enhance and augment their cognitive abilities and everything else. Potentially heal all sorts of birth defects or other health problems.
Yeah, with CRISPR and everything too.
Exactly, like heal blindness or whatever, but that's not it. It will give that human 2.0 the ability to access information instantaneously and knowledge, just like the AI does, and absorb libraries of books in seconds and access them and read them. And you will make that version of human, which is a symbiosis between biological carbon-based life form and silicon-based life form. You will be some kind of the different species, basically. You will give almost like godlike powers, like knowledge and power and stuff. And those that will be left behind because of the cost of doing this, or maybe some ideological reasons, there will be people that will, for religious reasons or personal reasons or medical reasons, whatever, they will choose not to reject this technology. And I'm one of those that at the beginning I'll be skeptical a little bit. I will take a step back and wait and see, but those that do not embrace it, they will be left behind, and they will not be able to compete. They will not be able to compete with the rest. They will just not be able to compete. This technology will displace millions of people from workplace jobs that will become the cost of knowledge becomes zero. Okay, there will be degrees, university degrees that will have zero value. You go and get a diploma and nobody will give you a penny to work for them, because AI will do it at one-off cost, without holidays, without pension, without sick leave, without getting tired, without interruption, hopefully without mistake.
And way more effective too.
So yeah, many will become obsolete. Many human professions and humans, actually, I'm afraid. So this is going to transform I have two young boys. I'm terrified about the future, not because of me, because I'm counting the years to retirement, and maybe I'll enjoy whatever is left in the pension. All the economies in the world are broken, basically beyond repair. All the currencies, all the whatever is I'm gonna enjoy, I don't know, but for the young ones, wow, this is why I don't think AI can do tennis, for example. If my boy can do a tennis coaching or become a professional tennis player, I think that is quite safe. He's bulletproof against AI. But if he wants to be a lawyer, or if he wants to be an architect, or if he wants to drive a lorry or a cab or a bus or something, or if he wants to be a language teacher, we speak 4 languages in my family.
All teacher, really.
We speak or any teacher, physics, anything. Yeah, we speak 4 languages in my family. So if he wants to be a language teacher or a translator somewhere, okay, these will be completely obsolete. Nobody will need this kind of job. Many other jobs will disappear. Computer programmer. You said you've been in IT a lot and stuff. I think you agree with me that Microsoft and Facebook and Intel and all these people are slashing jobs like into thousands, like programming jobs. And we are talking about creative jobs. I mean, Hollywood had the first strike, I think, in the history of Hollywood. Think about the CGI people, the creative, the special effects, the bloody. You just prompt an AI now, and it does the whole thing at zero cost.
Zero cost and probably a fraction of the time.
Then you go and pay Tom Cruise something. You don't pay him $10 million for the next Mission Impossible. You pay him $100,000 or $1 million or something. You pay him something for the rights to use his voice and his image.
Or you make Tim Cruise, which is just a guy that looks just like him.
He's on the beach somewhere or enjoying retirement, and you are using his image and whatever his name, and the entire movie is made on a server somewhere in Iceland or something. So this is, and so what happened with cameraman people? What happened with the sound effects people? What happened to special effects people? What happened to the artistic designers? What happened? The costumes, the music, it's an industry that, oh my God, there are thousands and thousands and thousands that contribute to this industry that will become obsolete.
I agree.
But coming back to what I was saying, to be careful with AI, it does mistakes. At the moment or at least the version I'm using a version. I pay £20.
4.0.
I'm using ChatGPT £20 a month. I'm using a version because I'm running some science journals. I'm chief editor, and with the web design, I do everything. The webmaster, the journal manager, the typesetting, I edit articles in LaTeX. I don't have the money to pay anybody to do this because I'm making a loss with these journals. So without AI, I will not be able to do this. Okay. But I'm telling you, it does mistakes.
Of course it does. Yeah, it hallucinates.
It's not for someone that doesn't know. So in physics, if you want to go and do some research in physics using AI, if you are not a physicist, you will not be able to do some meaningful research or spot any mistakes or prompt the correct way or whatever. You still need to know physics to be able to do, you still need to know programming to be able to use AI to do a proper program that is functional and is operational and is optimal and whatever. You can't just go with zero knowledge at the moment and get the AI to do things that are working, at the moment. But you need to remember, this is day one in the millennia. This is the day one, is the birth. We just started like a year or two ago, and
so I'll share this with you. I might cut this out of the episode. I'm not sure if I want to make this have our listeners know this, but we'll see. The AI that I'm creating, it's an agent AI. It uses mostly ChatGPT. But what I'm doing right now is I'm actually working on adding databases like PubMed and Archive and a couple other like science peer-reviewed databases that normally ChatGPT knowledge doesn't have access to. So what I do is I'll transcribe an episode of a podcast like this where it gets all the text. I use OpenAI's Whisper API, so it'll just take the MP3 and make it into a transcript. And then what I do is I use ChatGPT to parse that, summarize it, look for the anomalies that are claimed, and then create search queries to query those databases for scientific peer-reviewed journal entries, essentially. And then whambo bambo, I get a prompt that I can then use to ask it questions, and it actually creates a scientific paper with like an abstract and everything based on the episode. Amazing. And then it will use that data to have a conversation with me, and I've been plugging it into episodes and things like that.
Incredible, yeah.
So it's pretty cool.
It's pretty cool, but you have to admit it's quite scary. It's quite scary because we're becoming almost dependent on this technology, and it's like digging our own grave. It's like it's almost like I don't see how a physics academics or any academics in any profession, any field of science or social sciences or whatever, any academic field would survive the AI revolution, because you can make some AI agent to look like Einstein, and he will stand in front of a classroom of students, and I'm not sure about other academics, but before any lecture I need to go and review the night before. I need to review my lecture notes and stuff, things that I've done for decades. I still need to look at my own notes and refresh the things and make sure I remember the correct things and stuff, because we're humans. You can't, we are no machines. We don't remember everything all the time. You forget things, you make mistakes, maybe you are tired the night before, maybe the machines, they don't do that. They just go there and they deliver a lecture with instantaneous access to all the books, all the knowledge, without any mistake, without any interruptions, and without exhaustion. They never get tired. They do another one next hour. They do another one. I need a break. Then I go and do another one. They don't.
It makes us human, right?
So how long before there is already a school in Texas using full AI, no teachers, and apparently 80% the exam results and everything, the grades, apparently is an uplift of 80% for students attending that school. They use AI 100%. And not only that, apparently what it does, it kind of adapts the teaching method based on the ability of the students. So it creates profiles and scans all the students, and those that are at a lower level, they adapts the materials for their level, so they are going at their own pace and they catch up with the others. Those that are more advanced, they are given more advanced things to do. I mean, it's incredible. As a teacher or as an academic, I can never do that.
Yeah.
You just do
it's a double-edged sword.
One size fits all.
Sure.
You just do one lecture for everybody. If you get it, you get it. If you don't get it, you don't get it. The AI can adapt to different levels, to different students, and deliver outstanding, optimized teaching materials and stuff and learning experience. And the results are incredible. We can't compete with that. So I was talking about all sorts of professions, but teaching
that's a big
academic teaching and teaching primary schools and high schools and any teaching is not going to last. I'm telling you, it's a matter of time before, financial pressures. I'm not sure about universities in Australia and the United States, but in the UK,
it's coming.
It's a lot of financial pressure. I'm telling you, it's crazy what is happening. So they will start, removing stuff and replace them with the machines very soon.
I want to ask you about the Fibonacci sequence. And as someone that's just interested in this topic and having a little bit of a computer background, I know how to program and things like that. And when someone brings up simulation theory, and potentially like some sort of source code of the universe and things like that, I always think of the Fibonacci sequence and how there's this mathematical equation that is the same in hurricanes as in flowers, and there seems to be this universal, like, for lack of a better phrase, like a variable that is reused over and over again.
Yeah.
In the code of life and the universe. So, have you ever thought about that, and how does that, if at all, integrate into your theory?
This it's not just that. It's something to do with the prime numbers and with the fractals and the all these patterns that keep popping up everywhere. And in my paper, I talk about the symmetries a lot, and the fact that the symmetries are a necessity to optimize a computational process, really. Just like when you design, if you do AutoCAD or something, and you start designing something, you use the symmetries and translation symmetry and all that to make your life easier. You don't start doing some funny shapes there, and So the truth is that the answer is that all these mathematical, I shouldn't call them anomalies, mathematical synchronicities or whatever, I don't know how to call them, but they keep popping up in nature everywhere and different processes and stuff, and they indicate that there is an underlying code, if you want, or some kind of mathematical substrate to everything, because they have a common denominator. They manifest in so many things in the universe. So they really indicate exactly this, what you said. They are an evidence of that. But if you speak to somebody that is skeptical, they will say that's not proof, that's a speculation. And it's true, it's a speculation. But when too many coincidences like this become evidence or become strong enough to justify scientific investigation, or explanations, just trying to find explanations, because the only explanations are the following: it's coincidence, or there is a design behind. Now, do you believe in coincidence? I mean, how the hell is it's almost like winning lottery every day of the week for 1,000 years or something. It's like the probabilities are, you can't have coincidence like this. You can't. So then you are left with the other alternative that is a design behind. Okay, and it pops up all the time in all sorts of all these mathematical coincidences and synchronicities and fractals and Fibonacci sequence is another one, and all these things they keep popping up because there is an underlying code that propagates into everything, and it pops up in the physical, what we call the physical reality or the physical world. But the truth is, it could be just simple code instructions which manifest in our reality as laws of physics, as the nature, the complexity, all the things that we experienced, and the evolution of matter and galaxies and all that. But they come from simple code lines and instructions into a code. And my view is that because that goes to that fundamental question between creation and evolution. Okay. I'm not anti-Darwin at all, and I'm not anti-creation either. I just think that both are true. My philosophy is that there is a seed of creation, there is a point of creation and this point of creation is where the rules have been set, the rules of the game, the rules of the code, or whatever, or the commandments in the Bible, if you want, or whatever, the God said, let it be light, and started creating the rules of the game, and then the evolution came. So the once the rules were set into motion, then everything evolved, and we see evolution, and we experience an evolutionary process in nature, universe, whatever, in biological life and all sorts of things. But that evolution started with the creation process. So they are both true. Creation and evolution go hand in hand. They can't be one without the other, you see, because something can't evolve from nothing. It evolves from, there is a creation process, sort of. And Stephen Wolfram, he's been talking about this stuff since 1980s, to be honest. Cellular autonom or what is it called? Cellular
automation.
He had this model where, that's the one, yes. He had this model where he created a simple, like a grid with little, like a matrix, little squares and stuff, and he created some computer entities like a Tetris type of game, sort of like a simple game in there, and gave a simple rule. If this entity meets another entity at this angle or in the vicinity, then they join together. If it's 2 blocks apart, then they need to push apart, or some simple rules, okay? And he let the bloody code running overnight, and when he came back, what was on the board there, on that little grid, that little universe that he created, 2-dimensional thing. It was complexities, like insane complexities, like almost like life forms, things that were popping up, symmetries that were, patterns being formed and stuff. And then he concluded that simple coding rules like this, left to evolve, see, that creation and evolution, exactly what I was telling you, left to evolve, they resulted in incredible complexities over a long period of time. You let them evolve a long enough time, they will result in incredible complexities, such as humans, for example, or life forms, biological carbon-based life forms, and God knows what other things are in the universe.
Yeah, every fiber in my being right now is telling me what you're saying is right. I don't know what it is. I have no evidence, no proof. It's just like a instinctual
it's not me
intuition.
saying that. There are other great minds that have been talking about this for, and Plato had.
Yeah.
Since ancient Greece, the people in thousands of years ago, people were talking about this stuff. This is not new. Let's be honest. So yeah. So you said you had 2 questions. That was one of them. What was the second? What's the second one?
The second one, it's not so much a question, but it actually ties in exactly what you're saying here. I like playing video games as well. I'm not sure how much you play video games, but there's a video game out there called No Man's Sky, which came out like 10 years ago, I think, but it was very promising at first because these game developers created a world that was infinite. So it uses this math equation and algorithms to basically generate planets with different species on it, and you can fly to a different planet, and it's all just auto-generated, and it literally goes on just like our universe, like infinite. There's trillions of galaxies in this video game, and you could never see all of them. It's fascinating. And there's been updates to it recently, and at first it was really negatively received because the game kind of sucked, but it was impressive what they did. But as the game's kind of moving on, it's getting more and more, it's getting better. And I heard someone say, this is not my idea, my original idea, but it really triggers something in my brain, that we have artificial intelligence now. And probably in the next, that's every 2 years, people are saying the next 2 years, and it's like this, chasing a hamster wheel. But let's just say in the next 5 years, we might have artificial general intelligence.
I think it's already here. That is already here, but not in your computer. Is in the research labs. Is not in the public domain yet. Yeah,
I tend to agree with you on that. But the concept I'm trying to get to is, what if you had a game that was like No Man's Sky, that was running on a supercomputer, maybe even a quantum computer? I know that that's very overhyped right now, and we don't even have a working one really that's really powerful. But let's just say we do eventually. Well, what if we have all these non-playable characters, these NPCs that are in this game that right now just have they're stupid, they don't really know what they are. What if we put artificial general intelligence in every single non-playable character that's auto-generated in this massive universe? How is that any different than the world that we're living in now?
Well, you are dotting the I now and crossing the T. This is exactly one of the possibilities, okay? That's exactly how it is. It could be because I gave an interview for one of the newspapers here in the UK, and the guy was trying to twist my arm to speculate what could be behind this, and I came up with some speculations. Really, I can't call them anything else, but one of them was entertainment. It was a form of entertainment, really, almost like. Have you seen the movie Vanilla Sky?
Yes.
Okay, so
very
fascinating stuff. Okay, so in that movie, it was the lucid. They used to call it lucid dream, I think. So that was a service, a paid service, where you could choose to live in a lucid dream. So in a induced coma state type of thing, like a forever dream sort of thing. But you could choose the kind of life you want. You could select a program, who you want to be, who you want to be with, what you want to do there, and also select a timeout, sort of like an end of this. So maybe come back into the real world at some point, And so that wasn't necessarily entertainment, but this is the idea behind this. Like, it could be a form of entertainment, basically. So like a virtual reality created indistinguishable from real base reality sort of thing, where the avatars would choose to go in there and experience something that they don't have in their real life, or maybe some new experience. Maybe I want to go in there and experience being a woman, or maybe you can experience being an animal. Or maybe you can experience being, a poor person, or a disabled, or a rich person, or a sports celebrity, or something. You can choose the package and sort of a form of entertainment. Another explanation is a possible form of the learning aspects of this. So I'm not sure how to articulate this, but we run simulations before we do anything, really. If you do design in high-tech industries, before you start production process and all that, you run simulations, you get the design protocols and everything optimized, and then you go into the fab and start pumping money, real money, into making things. You don't just make things and then test them. You do first simulations, designs, and all that. And they do this with war games, like simulating war games before they go to war and stuff. They look at all the scenarios and stuff. So maybe the whole thing is designed to solve a problem. So some civilization like that could be us in the future, sort of like a future iteration of us, looking at how to solve, I don't know, the energy crisis of the planet, or some societal problems, or whatever, something. And then you create, and why would you do that? Because in the program, you can speed the time. So you can run 1,000 years in your time, in your base reality, could be run in a minute or in 10 minutes in the computer. You can extract the outcome of what the solutions they found to a specific problem in real time for you, to be implemented for you. And if they find a solution, then you adopt it if it's good. If they don't find anything, then you let them run, or you run parallel simulations, So that's
a three-body problem.
That exactly. That could be one thing. And then the final one is actually a form of immortality. And what do I mean by that is, and I try to explain this, have you ever had a dream that it was so detailed and it felt like lasted for like the whatever actions you're involved in there, whatever you're doing, you're going on and on and on and on for, it felt like hours or maybe days or whatever. But anyway, it was significant time. And in reality, that was in the dream time. But in reality, in your conscious, not subconscious, when you are in the dream, sort of like beta waves, whatever, it lasted a fraction of a second in reality. So how do I know that? Because I had a dream, okay, and I dreamt a whole range of actions and interactions and stuff that the climax of the whole thing was like a big bang, like an explosion of some kind in the dream, and obviously I woke up. It turns out that an object dropped my wife dropped an object in the room where I was sleeping. So what happened? My brain, in the time the sound waves traveled from that bang created by the object that dropped in the room, and it would have scared me a lot, yeah, and woke me up. The sound waves traveled to my brain, and my brain in the dream state, okay, fabricated in a fraction of a second, fabricated a whole alternative explanation in the dream world, if you want, as to what that noise was and why it happened. And that explanation lasted minutes and a long time. I could detail, because I woke up so fast, I could detail exactly what happened. I said, I can't believe it, that the reason of that bang was what you just did now. And in my dream, my brain created a whole story for it that finished with that bang, that had a different origin.
Incredible.
So what happened? A fraction of a second in my base reality. In my dream reality, it was minutes or hours, yeah? So then if you can master this in a controlled way, okay, then you can create this simulated reality, okay, like our world, let's say. And just like you buy a ticket to go to a movie, okay, or to go to a hairdresser or something, go for a service, you buy a ticket and say, I want 10 minutes to go into, the virtual reality, and experience a new life. Those 10 minutes in your base reality, or a minute or whatever, okay, are equivalent to an 80-year experience or 90-year experience in our simulated reality. So you come back, you go there, and you are born, you experience all the life experiences from growing up, going to school, starting family, getting old, getting jobs, whatever, and then dying, and then you wake up, 10 minutes are gone, you are back in your, the package stopped, and you are back. But you do remember, that experience was like, wow, I just lived a whole life in the last 10 minutes. And then what do? Buy me another one. I want to be in Africa next, or Chinese, or whatever. I want to buy me another one. Boom, I want to go back. Okay? And then you can go into a mode that is continuous, like you never wake up, It's just a bit like the reincarnation.
Yeah.
So you go.
That makes a lot of sense.
You go and you come back. You go and you come, because you choose not to wake up at all. Okay. And if everybody does, and this is run by an AI, and if everybody does this, the whole planet, all living humans are in the dream world, are in the VR world, and they are on a rebooting program where they never wake up actually in the base reality. They just go back in, and this is run by an AI, and there's nobody awake anymore. In the Bible, I wrote a book called Reality Reloaded, the scientific case for a simulated universe. Chapter 7 of the book is not very big, it's 140 pages only. Very scientifically written. Is essentially my papers are collated into a book sort of thing. But I have a little chapter, a few pages on some religious aspects of these ideas. If you go to the Bible and you look at the Gospel of John 1:1, and it reads like this. It says, at the beginning he was the Word, and the Word was with God, and God was the Word. Now pay attention. Just replace word with code.
Yeah.
And then say, at the beginning there was the code, and the code was with God. In other words, the creator, the programmer, yeah. And the code was God. In other words, the Bible tells us that God is an AI. So think about the implications of this. It's unbelievable. When I wrote this, I was a little bit scared of some of the pushbacks and the implications from religious fanatics or deeply religious people, because I'm spiritual, I'm Christian, okay, but I'm not fanatical or whatever. I wouldn't kill for my religion or something. I'm just Christian in my way. Yeah, I have my values and my but then exactly the opposite happened. I had emails from Muslim scholars and Jewish. And there was just this Muslim scholar. He sent me pages from the Quran with the Arabic paragraphs and then translation in English. And he told me, now I can see it. It's unbelievable. The Quran is telling us exactly this, but it's spelled more clearly than even the Bible, the Christian Bible. The same was the Jewish textbooks. They were saying exactly the same thing. We are living in a dream world. The real world is not here. The Allah is, you go there and that's the real world. I mean, if you look at those paragraphs from this simulation angle, then you realize, wow, this is actually the Bible. Is it somehow they are trying to tell us whatever is the source of the religious texts in all the religions?
Even the story in Genesis can be, from that perspective,
can be read from the simulation angle, yes. And but it's not just the simulation; it's the fact that the AI it appears to be something to do with AI behind the whole thing.
I saw a video. I don't know how true it is, but there was an experiment being done where they were giving people, was it LSD?
No, you're talking about the DMT laser experiment.
DMT laser experiment.
Yep, that's right. Yeah.
Is that a real thing? I don't even know. Do you guys know if that? I saw the video, but is that something that's like scientifically proven?
The guy who discovered that is a very good friend of mine. He came to London twice. We met twice. Once in Richmond, actually twice in Richmond. Actually, he's a very good friend of mine. I met his wife. He met my wife. He met my whole family, my kids. We had drinks together. Danny Goller, yeah,
amazing.
He even gave me the kit, the laser kit and stuff to try this at home. But I never did it because I never did the substance, and I'm a little bit uneasy about doing that. Okay, but this is real. The stuff is real. And there are thousands of people that have done it, and you can't have something like accidentally happening or whatever, coincidence like in thousands of times. It's impossible. You can't rule out that there is an underlying, there is something that is fundamentally happening to all of them. So this guy, you are talking about somebody who is a very good friend of mine. He's a member of the Information Physics Institute. He comes to all the talks we do online. We record them, we put them on YouTube. He interviewed me about a month ago, and the word was to come to London with a crew and do another interview for his podcast and stuff in London. It's not going to happen because I'm going to be at a tennis tournament. We had to cancel that one. But we did one online, the second one a month ago. He's a good friend of mine. Yeah, I know him very well. Nice guy.
Can I just go back now to the references you made to the Quran and the Bible and Scripture? So we've got this idea in John 1:1, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And that idea that God is an AI and the Word is literally code. Has there been, or have you had any conversations or discoveries when looking at the Torah or looking at the Quran around the way, because I know the Bible and the Quran do this, and the Torah, the way they describe the name of God? There seems to be a lot of references to the name of God, whether it's YHWH or Yahweh, or there's very specific references in the Old Testament around this. Did any of the people you spoke to on this topic talk about what that name could mean in the context of...
No, nobody actually raised this point. The only context was specific paragraphs where the simulation idea actually fits perfectly, where the Quran or the Bible or you find specific paragraphs where could be the interpretation could be 100% that they're talking about a simulation there. So that was the confined only to this context. But it could be something interesting in the name, like the way they call the God and stuff. Maybe there is. Yeah, I don't know.
It's the host name of the computer, I think.
That's, it's just funny because, especially the Old Testament puts so much emphasis on the name and really talks a number of times about the specificity of the name.
You think it's like a Pentium 3 or something, like some computer name or some AMD something or something.
Yeah, it's Dell.
yeah, Dell something.
Yeah.
Oh my God! No, I don't think this simulation idea is as simple as a computer somewhere doing it, or I think it's more like the entire universe works as a computer or some kind of. It's something more and something to do with the consciousness as well. I don't think it's as simple. I don't think it's just digital or quantum computer or some hardware doing it and code. We don't have a clue what runs this. It's just imagine you go to a cave, yeah, and you find some writing in the cave. The writing doesn't match Latin, doesn't match Chinese alphabet, doesn't match anything. But it looks like some kind of writing, okay? So your intuition will tell you that is some kind of language and that is some kind of alphabet. And some civilization, maybe on this planet or somebody else, wrote something in that cave. They left some notes there, okay? Some information, some records of something, okay? And your assumption is that they are formed just like our means of storing information, like some kind of letters or some kind of alphabet or something. And we do the same with this simulation idea. We assume that there is a computer code, there is some software, but it could be something so radically different than what we are doing. We just make these assumptions and analogies because this is what we have. We are looking at what we have and we say it gotta be the same or it gotta be something similar. Far more advanced, infinitely more advanced. But no, who says that life can be only carbon life and it can't be silicon-based life or some other? There could be so much different than what we can even imagine. Okay, so that's why I'm careful when I say more like it's a computational process. I'm not saying it runs on MS-DOS or like Microsoft, and it's not. We don't know. It might not even be binary. They might use some other. I mean, the genetics information is stored in 4 characters, not 2, 0 and 1. You have 4 encoding. We don't know how this is designed. We don't know what it runs, and it just appears to be some kind of computational process and mathematics behind.
Plato
Yeah.
Plato was right on the money with his cave, wasn't he?
Oh, yes.
That's a pretty...
Yes, and this is why consciousness kicks in a little bit. It seems to be, and comes from quantum mechanics, from some of the evidences we have, the observer dependent,
Observer effect
and all that. It seems to be, and from the games, you said you play a lot of games, and a game will not render anything unless you turn in the VR or in the game and do something in that space. Otherwise, you will consume energy and you computational power and energy for no reason, So it seems to be that we experience very similar processes in our base reality, sort of like our coming from quantum mechanics. And when you go to extremes, very small, very fast, very like the extremes, and this is when they pop up. Yeah. But we don't have a clue. The truth is, we don't have a clue what is behind this. We just assume it's some kind of quantum. We now have quantum computers. We say it might be a quantum computer, super advanced, maybe there is not even digital process behind. Maybe they use some other things.
Well,
yeah.
Can you imagine if you took an iPhone and brought it back to someone in the 80s, just like 30, 40 years ago? They'd be like, what is this thing?
It will look like alien technology. You will say this is from Mars. Yeah, it will. Yeah, exactly. And we are talking about less than 100 years. We are talking about decades.
Yeah. Now imagine what we're going to look like in 100 years, 1,000 years.
So imagine what we would be in 1,000 years if we don't go through some natural disaster or cataclysmic events, and we continue this trend of technological development. Where we would be in 1,000 years? Certainly we'll be able to create indistinguishable simulations from reality. Certainly.
So that was our conversation with Dr. Melvin Vopson. First and foremost, I just want to say thank you, Dr. Vopson, for speaking with us and sharing your story and talking about infodynamics with us. It was truly an honor. And I will say that I think we're hitting a stride with this show, and I think we're hitting the niche that I was looking for when I originally thought up this idea. And that is where the smartest person in the room has experienced something that they just can't explain. If you look back at previous episodes with Dr. Ethan Siegel, and then you have Dr. Jeff Meldrum, and now Dr. Melvin Vopson, I find it really fascinating when these incredibly educated people have experienced something that they just simply can't explain. And that's not to say I won't continue to interview the normal person, but I think interviewing these academics adds a lot more credence to the average person that has these unexplainable experiences. So with that, I hope you enjoyed this episode and our conversation with Dr. Melvin Vopson. This podcast was created and edited by Justin Gearhart, produced by Josh Barretto, mixed and mastered by Brett Jarvis. If you enjoyed this episode and want to help contribute to the growth of the show, it would mean everything to us to give us a like, give us a follow, 5-star review, all the things. It would mean the world to us. Thanks again for staying until the very end. We really appreciate it. And you've been listening to the Close Encounter Club.